this angle, just cheap.
We suggested tower video. The geography of the store seemed to work better for the scene. It's actually in Greenwich Village. The streets are not as busy as certain of our other more congested locations, and the store owners were cooperative enough to allow us to close the store down for a couple of days.
Shut the door, right?
The perspective that we've landed on is Neville is not trying to fight these things. He's not a superhero who's trying to go in and fight. The last thing he wants to do is have to interact with these things. He's fighting for survival. And when somebody's fighting for survival, it has a different look to it.
I think when the audience meets Neville, he is pretty ragged. I think he's been suffering the sort of reliving of this loss and the dullness that it has created in him, and the sort of sense of suspended time that loss always creates. He's been living this over and over again for 3 years. So we meet him at a pretty low point, and from that moment on, things just get worse.
You realize that in your entire life, you've never seen an empty picture of New York. And it just gives so much depth and power to the idea, and getting it inside to that scary place inside of all of us.
March, hey Fred.
To really search for the reality of the situation. It was scary and it was beautiful, and so many different genres inside of it. It was a horror movie, a science fiction, a wonderful art character piece, and it just has so many elements to it.
See you guys inside. That's a cut. There's nobody there.
We talked to a lot of experts about how people learn how to survive, through isolation, and the kinds of things and routines they come up with, and things that they should do in a routine, especially someone educated who would come up with a game plan for their day. And one of the things was always entertainment.
Let's go get it.
And when you're the last man alone in New York City, there is some fun to be had, albeit lonely fun. And so one of the ideas we came up with is Will's a golfer, so we said, okay, golf, and we thought maybe off the library steps, and then we thought, okay, maybe that's not spectacular enough. So I was driving up the West Side Highway one day and saw the Intrepid, and remember that they had a stealth fighter. So I thought, hey, maybe it's kind of cool if he goes up and hits golf balls off the back of a stealth fighter and off into the city, which is kind of nice.
Oh yeah, it's coming together.
The Intrepid is, of course, the Intrepid Air, Sea and Space Museum. It's a World War II aircraft carrier, and what's great about the Intrepid is it's a commanding view of the west side of Manhattan. You get a lot of cityscape there.
I also really like the idea, too, on top of it all, that we're seeing these elements that are, seemingly so important to the world now, but actually, if a pandemic like this happened and the world were sort of to go away, something that we spend so much time and energy and worry and billions of dollars building, these kinds of weapons, that they're now just kind of sitting here rotting, and they're absolutely useless.
There is no pier in the East River alongside the Brooklyn Bridge, so we had to make one. We brought a barge in, we anchored it to the riverbed, attached a gangway from the barge to the shoreline, which is a promenade area. To pull that one off required the cooperation of city, state, and federal agencies, I think, to a degree unprecedented in New York.
It's 290 feet long, 40 feet wide, and it's connected by a 65-foot bridge, which I'm sitting on right now. We've anchored it in as our pier for the evacuation scene.
People that are accepted are going to go on the barge 45 at a time. So
this scene probably took about 2.5 months to prep and organize, and we have to get permits from about 9 to 10 different organizations, like the Coast Guard, the City of New York, the Harbor Unit, the Economic Development Corporation, everybody. It's huge.
The briefs are on the call sheet again: helicopter, water, cold weather, and when we say cold weather, tomorrow night, we mean it now.
And the idea was always that quarantine happened at Christmas, and so when we started working on this film, we knew we wanted the majority of the film to sort of take place in late summer, so that it would really sharply contrast the flashbacks of when people are around, which were Christmas. And so when we scheduled it, we said, you know what, we should really do it around Christmas. So you could see breath, and if we're out on the streets, there can really be Christmas decorations, which there were.
there's a cut there.
But immediately, as we started shooting, we were all dreading coming back from our holiday hiatus and having to go to, you know, shoot under the Brooklyn Bridge on the East River in mid-January when the, you know, New York weather is going to be at its worst. And it was cold.
We're going to have a last mark where you, if you pass this back fence, you have to have a life jacket on.
Working conditions are really hard because 3 sides of this set are completely water. So there are safety issues. This is something that's right next to the Brooklyn Bridge. We have hundreds and hundreds of extras that are coming out on the barge and trying to evacuate. A helicopter's landing at the same time. So logistically putting it together, it's quite a lot of things to juggle.
Just so everybody knows, I have 3 divers on each side. If you see somebody go in, yell man overboard, and do not take your eyes off of them at all.
Never look up or lose sight of them. We're counting on you to track where they are.
So let's stay safe and stay dry and try to stay warm.
The military was great. They were wildly cooperative. I mean, the Pentagon was great. For the most part, the soldiers you see are real soldiers. The Coast Guard are real Coast Guard, and we tried to follow protocols that would be the protocols should there be a quarantine of this sort.
The 69th National Guard unit here in New York City, which would be the unit that would actually had this job should it ever come to it, was kind enough to allow us to hire their troops in an off-duty status. The unit that we actually got our troops from came back from Iraq about 10 months ago. They fought valiantly, but they're trained as National Guards in addition, so urban peacekeeping and this type of operation falls under their purview should they be activated by the governor. Having them here makes my job and the production's job so much easier.
Scan her again. Scan her again.
What the National Guard gives us is they have a dual job on this movie. They are background, they are actors in our movie, but they are also a great support of moving the crowd through and being realistic of what the crowd needs to do. So they'll move the crowd through just like they're securing any other place and evacuating. So it's like a real operation for them.
Directly behind me is a Stryker assault vehicle. This is the first time any film has had a Stryker in it. It is the newest armored personnel carrier, and it will carry our troops into battles for decades to come. This one was particularly hard to get because pretty much everyone that comes off the line is heading overseas in support of our troops. These were lent to us by the National Guard unit at Fort Indiantown Gap. They brought in a field support team to assist us in utilizing them on set. And the Department of Defense and the U.S. government lends it to us on a cost reimbursement basis. So the production is not renting the equipment, but it doesn't cost the taxpayers anything for it to be here.
Rolling.
Action will.
I always like to stay in shape. You know, I have a motto: if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. You know, so that's usually how I do it. When it's time to make a movie, I'm 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out from being where I want to be. I trained with Daryl Foster. He trained me for Ali and iRobot. So we've been working together for years, and you know, he keeps me pretty tight.
We came up with the idea that he would actually be very physically fit because he had to survive, always trying to be looking out for the dark secrets. But he would be drained where he wasn't living an abundant life, you know, as far as foods were concerned, just eating to live. In conjunction with the training and physical look for the body, we try to incorporate the mind because intense training can sometimes pull you out of character. So what was great for this particular movie was we just put him in desperate straits where it was oxygen deprivation, heat, all kind of adverse conditions. Boxing training, martial art training, whatever would drain him down, and then weight training around 5 o'clock in the evening. We wanted him tired. So when he hit New York for filming, character development, he was already ready. We do the cardio first thing in the morning, but sometimes it's a tug and war determining on how intense the dialogue is. Cutting your carbohydrate intake can make you flub your lines because the brain actually needs oxygen and glucose. So it's very tricky there. If you know you've got some intense scenes, but it has to be a drained part of the movie, on the weekends we don't take that downtime. We got to go get the 10, 15 miles that it takes in order for him to come with the look. And then that Monday, we're actually up his carbs. So he has the look, but then he has the nutrition he needs in order to do pages and pages of dialogue.
Go get it, go get it!
I've worked with professional fighters, martial artists, worked 18 years with Sugar Ray Leonard. I've never met, next to Ray, anybody that is as committed to his craft as Will Smith. Never complains.
So you got everything in the front? You good in the front?
Yeah, we're gonna get cross on you guys, okay?
It's an airbrush solution, and he's slightly infected.
You know, we've made a couple of significant changes from the novel. We just felt that the vampire as a result of infection was no longer new. So we tried to find symptomatology that replicated opportunistically the most terrifying, the most interesting, the most beguiling characteristics of those who were infected in Matheson's novel, but sort of move it into today.
I think the major changes are in filming. They can do things now that they never could before, which makes it much more believable. Put them out of their misery much more expeditiously than with a stake.
They are dark seekers. They are infected with a virus that is a mutation and a connection of retrofitted measles that made contact with dormant rabies, and it has created what we call the KV virus.
Do that, go up on the top of your head again.
She's a dark seeker, and I'm trying to find a new serum, and I'm testing the GA series serum 391 compound 6, and it doesn't work, and she flatlines. And then I hit her with the epi, you know, she comes back. But I'm very sad because I've been here for 3 years by myself and the world is crumbling around me and I'm supposed to be the savior, but I ain't saving nothing. So it's a hard day for me today. Let's watch.
And you see pop up there?
Yeah, Mike,
we began the movie thinking we were going to make the creatures with prosthetics and applications, and after our first few days of second unit filming, we looked at the footage and suddenly realized it looked like Attack of the Angry Mimes.
In some ways, changing the creatures from human beings to computer-generated creatures made my life easier. The creatures have to do things that are abnormal, so therefore we have to try and make humans do abnormal things. Also, there's the demolition derby, as we call it, where Will Smith takes his 4x4 and just smashes into these creatures and knocks them up in the air, runs them over. That would have set a whole new lot of problems of how we do that many car hits, how it's safe to do that, make it look spectacular. So I'm glad we came to that decision. You have to have a semblance of reality to it. It's just how we shoot it. It takes a lot of working out.
Oh, great.
Well, what's happening in the sequence for the film is that they've conscripted basically everything that'll float to get people off of the island. Tier 1 personnel are being taken off the island by aircraft. So at the top of the scene, we've got a U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopter that lifts off in the beginning of the sequence. As Will's family moves through the scene, this Coast Guard helicopter comes in. We actually do a lot of work right under the aircraft itself while it's turning, and then we load Will's family onto it for their evac off of the island. The Coast Guard is providing both aircraft and watercraft for us. The watercraft are mostly working in a standoff position as a backdrop for the scene itself.
And then right when we start rolling, I want to have you do a hard twist around, and just for while we're filming, hold your stern toward Pier 17 for continuity.
Will's family is actually being evacuated in a Coast Guard H-65 Dolphin helicopter. That helicopter is being loaned to us under our agreement with DOD from the Atlantic City Air Station, and they are just top flight guys. They're unbelievably helpful, giving us everything that we need for the film and doing it with a smile. These guys train non-stop. They're top of their game. The flight crews come in, they work with our aerial coordinators, they fly the exact proper flight path every time. Their repeatability is flawless. It is really a pleasure to work with them.
I think Neville has convinced himself that he is the last man alive, even though statistically that's pretty unlikely. Much of the human race is gone. He knows that. He's a physician. But for him to actually be the last person on the planet, well, that would be pretty difficult. And yet, he believes that. So I think quite naturally we believe it for a good bit of the beginning of the movie. But as it starts to be exposed to the light of reason, both Neville and the audience sort of comes pretty quickly to the idea that, well, probably not. There's probably someone else out there.
What I love is the conflict between desperately desiring human contact, but fear of human contact. And that, that was something we discovered also in the research, that people generally who have been in solitary confinement, or we did POW research, you actually reject contact. It's your deepest desire, your deepest dream when you're in the situation, but the second that you're free to have that contact, there's a huge rejection of it. It's almost like cold water. And that dichotomy is just a wonderful psychological place to explore as an actor.
Come on.
The previous night, he had an awful hallucination. So there's uncertainty. He hopes that they're real, but not certain that they're real. And then it crosses his mind, well, if I shoot them, then I could be certain whether they're real or not. But wait, if I shoot them and they're real, oh damn, then that would kill him. So it's like all of that the bizarre psychology is just, it was like a playground for me.
What Lisey has is real authenticity and beauty and a kind of kindness. There's a glow to her, which is palpable. I think it's recognizable in the room and on screen. There's kind of a light there.
She makes a decision and just go and save him, even if the Darkseekers are around. Just throw them lights and save him. It's a choice. It's trusting the unknown. For me, that's the belief. Trusting in the unknown. I think she makes that decision in that moment when she saves him.
She represents hope in the movie. That is to give him something to want again.
I really got passionate about her passion to life, her desire to keep alive, and her hope for something else. And especially talking about Ethan, the little boy, her care for someone else. Because that relationship shows that she's a really generous person.
This movie's been complex, but actually all the things that I think people have been most worried about with this, which is, there's a child in the movie, and but he's been fantastic.
I mostly follow Anna around a lot, so it's only for a few days that I don't trust Neville enough, but in a few scenes he knows that I don't trust him, so he tries to make me laugh and does all this silly stuff in the scenes.
We don't show their story in the movie, but I created in the back of my mind how she got him. Why this 20-something years old girl has a kid, and how they survived in that creature's world. Will is big and he's strong, so it's easier in a way for a man to survive. For a girl and a boy, I really got passionate for her strength.
Before we started filming the movie, just to kind of get to know me and stuff, she took me out for ice cream one day after one of the rehearsals. That was the first time I met her. She's always hugging me. She's really nice.
Everybody that sort of asks who's in the movie, what's happening, you say Will Smith, they go, oh wow, is he here today? And it suddenly breaks the ice and everybody sort of has a bit more tolerance.
He's really fun. He's a really nice guy. And he makes up all these funny songs. Whenever I come on the set, he's like, Charlie says. And he's like, he's really fun.
Who's supposed to be at work?
talk to people, he will stop, he will sign autographs. He's the most generous guy I have ever been around. And he makes my job 100% easier.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, Steve, the dog on me on the last take, man.
Oh, we'll take care.
I was wondering if you could handle, like, because it was all over the front of me on the last take. Can you got that?
I have an assistant take care of it.
Okay, thanks, man, because it was just all in the scene. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you.
I think on that note we've cut.